As you can see, this area is wet, and it hasn't rained in quite some time. Yesterday, I heard the sound of water running, and I really couldn't tell why. Now I think I know. I'm going to troubleshoot to figure out where this water is coming from, but it is most likely coming from a hole in a copper pipe under the slab. So to repair this leak, I'm going to have to run some new PEX plumbing up in the attic. Let's fix this on Brew Builds. They built this house using a softer copper pipe under the slab to save money. After 30 to 40 years, this copper starts to develop little pinholes, resulting in slab and wall leaks. I've replaced most of the old copper plumbing. However, there are a few places that it's very challenging to get to, one of them being above the kitchen. So I never rerouted those copper lines, and now we have another slab leak. An easy way to find out if you have a small leak is by looking at your water meter. On mine, there's a small triangle dial that spins when water is flowing. You can see the dial slowly spinning counterclockwise. If I turn a garden hose on, you can see that the triangle dial is rotating faster, and if you look closely, you can see the red needle is barely moving. This is measured in cubic feet. One rotation of the red needle is equal to 1 cubic foot of water, which is about 7.5 gallons. First thing that I want to figure out is if it's the cold line or the hot water line. To do that, I can turn the water off going to the hot water heater. Here is the water shutoff valve for our tankless hot water heater. I already have it in the closed position. This is kind of a mess. I should redo this plumbing while I'm at it. Let's go look at the meter. If it's still spinning, that would mean that it's the cold water line. Of course, you need to make sure that there's nothing running during this test, like the shower, a toilet, or an ice maker. Still spinning slowly, so it must be the cold water line. I'll shut the water off to the entire house using the main shutoff valve before I do this repair. If you don't have a main shutoff valve, there should be a valve on your meter, but those can be hard to reach and may require a special tool. From here, it goes into the house and then under the slab, and then it comes up again by the front entry doors. Here it splits off and goes into the rest of the house, and then it goes over into the garage into another junction spot where I already reworked the hot water lines. I started replacing the plumbing with PEX when we had a slab leak in the entryway. Now the only hot water line that is still under the slab is the one line that feeds the kitchen. It's pretty much impossible to reach the space above the kitchen sink in the attic, so I was waiting until we remodeled the kitchen to run new PEX lines. I guess I'm not waiting any longer. Before I start cutting these pipes, I want to check one more spot in the kitchen wall where there could be a leak. To get to the pipes is either breaking into the kitchen cabinets or the exterior stucco. I chose the stucco. Here's a pipe that comes from the garage and then splits off to the sink, fridge, and outdoor faucet. It doesn't look like anything is wet or leaking, so the leak must definitely be under the slab. Great, I just created more work for myself, but I guess this is better than replumbing everything, then finding a leak in the wall. I do have a video on my channel on how to patch stucco and make your walls look new. Be sure to check that one out if you're interested in hearing some tips on how to repair cracked or broken stucco yourself. I'm going to cut all this out and run a new 3/4 inch PEX line in the attic to the hot water heater, splitting off a 1/2 inch line to the washing machine and kitchen. Once I determine which one of these pipes is the inlet, I'll cap it off. That way I can turn the water back on while I'm working on installing the new PEX lines. I can't fit the small pipe cutter in here and spin it around, so I'll have to use a sawzall. If you can, use a pipe cutter on copper because the cuts will come out much better. You can still have pressure in the system after shutting off the water, so I like to turn on a garden hose to release the pressure and drain some of the water out before working on plumbing. I wasn't able to record cutting the pipes with the sawzall. I needed my other hand to hold the red PEX out of the way. There are plenty of shots I'm using a sawzall in other videos. You need the copper pipe to be clean and burr-free before putting on a shark bite fitting. Use 150 grit or higher sandpaper to smooth out the copper. Shark bite fittings have a rubber O-ring inside that can be damaged by a sharp corner edge. While I'm sanding, how about subscribing and clicking the like button for me? I'm gonna have my wife tap the water on for a second, and hopefully water comes out of this one and not this one. Okay, go! Yep. Shark bite fittings are easy for DIY plumbing repairs and work great when installed correctly. To help with that, there's a depth gauge used each time to mark the pipe to show you when you have pushed the fitting on the proper amount. One thing you want to watch out for when you're repairing copper plumbing with shark bite fittings is sometimes there can be extra solder that runs down the pipe, and the fitting won't fit over that solder. So if I'm putting a shark bite fitting on this, I'll have to cut it down past the solder to make sure I can get the fitting on. I'll just push this cap on and make sure that it reaches the mark. There we go. Go turn the water on and use it. So this is another location where there's a plumbing web of pipes. One of these comes from the front of the house to the main. The other one is the one we just capped off in the garage. This is what I replaced stuff with, not sure, probably 10 years ago and never finished because I don't finish jobs. But good thing about YouTube videos, it's going to make me finish.
Okay.
So this is actually cold water, not hot water. I didn't have any 3/4 inch blue tubing at the time, but I just bought a roll of it. So I'm going to replace this with a blue and then tap into it up in the attic and extend that over to the kitchen and the hot water heater and the washer and dryer. I'm now above the entryway. Here's the 3/4 inch red cold water line coming up from below. I'll tee off here and run a new 3/4 inch PEX cold water line back to the hot water heater, washer, and kitchen. Now I have the fun task of trying to get the new blue tubing unraveled and over here. For me to get around up here in the attic, I have to go under the exhaust vent for the furnace, then pick up the power cord and go under the power cord, then step over these pipes and air conditioning ducts. Then I can get on top of the ceiling above the entryway. Yeah, it's so much fun working in an attic, but at least it's not a hot summer day. It's actually a cool winter day, so I can't complain even though I am starting to sweat. I'm using a 9-degree bend support to go around this corner, and then I'll be adding in a T to branch off a 1/2 inch line for the washing machine. From here, I'll extend it around the next corner using another bend support to keep it close to the studs. I still need to cut the other end of the pipe. Once it's cut, I should be able to bend it, add in the other T for the kitchen, and then use some J-hooks nailed to the studs to hold the PEX in place. This is where the cold water line comes in for the tankless hot water heater. I'm going to take this apart and redo it. I use a small tubing cutter to cut the copper tubing and remove a chunk of the tubing and the shut-off valve. Sometimes it's hard to record a video in tight spaces when I need both hands. I just wanted to show you the tool. I have a new valve that's a shark bite valve, so that will replace all of this. I'll put the shut-off valve for the hot water heater about here. I'll add a short piece of PEX with an elbow to get through the wall and then connect it to the hot water heater. For the kitchen, I'll add another T and bring the tubing down the other stud, add another shutoff valve, and then run the PEX over to the kitchen area. I'm using crimp style PEX fittings. These are less expensive compared to shark bite fittings, but you do need a special crimp tool. Also be aware there's PEX A and PEX B tubing and fittings that are not interchangeable. PEX A is ideal when flexibility and freeze resistance matters, especially in cold areas. I'm using PEX B, which is a cost-effective, durable option for plumbing systems and easier for DIYers. Make sure that the tubing is pushed all the way onto the fitting. Be careful when you put the crimper tool around the crimp ring that you don't move it along the tubing. I just double check to make sure that the ring is in the correct spot before crimping. I'll crimp it once, rotate the tool 90 degrees, and then crimp a second time. When mounting this, I want to make sure that I can open and close the valve without it hitting something. You want the crimp ring to be in the middle of the fitting end, which makes it about an 1/8 inch away from the flange. Put the crimp into the tool, double check that it hasn't moved, and then crimp, rotate, and crimp again. My crimper came with a go and no-go check tool. This is used to check that the crimp ring is installed properly. If the go sight fits over the crimp ring, then it's good to go. That's good. I'm going to crimp the next piece of tubing before I nail on a J-hook. That way I have plenty of play to get the crimp tool around the fitting. I'll attach the shutoff valve to this end, add the cold water line to the washing machine, then get the other end of the PEX connected. That way I can get the hot water turned back on for the house while I finish the plumbing for the kitchen. I had to do this for the washing machine's hot water line a while ago, running PEX down the side, adding in an elbow, then converting from PEX to the existing copper using a shark bite elbow. I'll do the same with the cold water side using the 1/2 inch blue PEX that I already fed down from above. All the way to the mark. Now you need 2 hands to get this on, so. I just need to tie this new 3/4 inch PEX line into this red one that's the cold water. I'll replace it someday, I just want to get this emergency repair done. I have the water shut off at the main, I just need to get this cut and add in the T. Whoa, whoa, oh. Well, that's what happens when the water line still has pressure. All right, other than the drama of a bunch of water coming out, that was pretty easy. And one of these days I'm gonna blacken the side that is the go side. Just
good. That's good. That one's good.
I can't get above the kitchen in the attic. There's about an 8-inch gap between a beam and the ridge board, and I've tried to get through many times, but it's just too small and I freak out. So I'm going to cut into the soffit and see if I can run the PEX through here. After cutting into some of the drywall, I discovered that this is built out of 2x12s. I'm not ready to completely destroy the kitchen, so I'll move on to plan B, which runs the 3/4 inch PEX tubing from the shutoff valve through the attic as far as I can, then pokes through the stucco and comes down the wall and reconnects to the copper tubing inside the wall where I checked if it was leaking. So cutting a hole in the wall actually became a benefit. This bypasses the copper pipe that is leaking under the slab. There is still a piece of copper tubing that runs from here under the slab over to the kitchen sink. You can see we have a moisture problem in this wall as well, causing the paint to peel. I think I should run another piece of PEX along the wall and reconnect to the sink faucet. If we weren't planning a kitchen remodel, I don't know if I'd be tearing all this up, but most of this will be changing hopefully within a year. Let's see what's in this wall. When working on older homes and removing stucco, you don't want to damage the felt paper that's underneath. The paper is what keeps moisture out of your walls. Ideally, you want the stucco to crumble by doing quick bursts with a pneumatic or small Dremel hammer. I'm going to go around the perimeter first, then I'll start removing the stucco from the center. Pounding the stucco hard with a sledge or claw hammer will break and push the stucco into the paper and tear it, which is fine if you're going to replace the paper and redo everything. You can see there is some damage to the paper around the cleanout pipe. Other than that, I don't think I tore it. The copper pipe should be behind the chicken wire and paper. Here is the cold water line that feeds the faucet. Look, we have roots growing into our slab. This can't be good. So I need to come out of this area, run PEX along this wall. I can stick it up through here to help support it. And then I'll need to tie into all this other stuff down here. I have this shark bite removal tool that you use to press down on the plastic sleeve of the fitting so you can remove it. Putting a wrench over the tool and tapping with a hammer seems to work well, especially in tight places. The water is back on. I just need to check for leaks. Not ideal, but this should buy me some time until I start the kitchen remodel. At that point, I'll run some new PEX lines up through the attic and get everything back up to code. Hit that like button for me, subscribe to Brew Builds, and be sure to check out my other videos of me fixing and building things around the house.